I need my mic to be on. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another entry into our reading journal. We are going to be talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is written by Arthur C. Clarke and published in 1968, alongside with Stanley Kubrick. I can talk, I can say words. Stanley Kubrick made the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, and they're both released, I think, in the same year. And Arthur C. Clarke worked with Stanley Kubrick on getting the screenplay up, and I'd never seen the movie. I've heard of it. I knew parts of the movie, but I never actually watched it until after I read the book, which is great. And here's my physical copy of it right now. Yep, that side. So this is a classic, labeled as a classic in the genres and as well as sci-fi, and it's a trip. It's a trip. This is the second book I've read of Arthur C. Clarke, and they are both trips. So far, my reading into Arthur C. Clarke has just been, that's been the best way I can put it, is it's a trip. The first book I read was A Childhood End, which I will be adding into the reading journal because we are reading every book that we own. And I read that one, I think, 2 years ago, so it'll be nice to go back to it. But we finished this one the beginning of this year. Yep, we actually finished it on New Year's Day. Go us. So this is the first book we officially finished in 2004. This is the first book we officially finished in 2024, and it's good. Like, I enjoy it. This book is broken into 6 parts. I gotta say, the first part is the one that really roped me in. It was almost my favorite parts of the book. Like, that's how much I really enjoyed it. The book starts off on Earth back when prehistoric times, I guess. Not prehistoric, maybe? Yeah, is that the right word? I don't know. It was back when before man was man, back before man was Neanderthal, back when mankind was living in caves and they were hiding from leopards, and there was this giant black crystal-like rectangle that appeared out of nowhere, and the people at the time were transfixed by it. Be transfixed by this giant crystal-like slab, and it would reach into the minds of those smart enough to reach into the minds to and kind of implant ideas and help them along with where they're going. This was before man at that time used tools. So it was showing how this crystal and the intelligence behind it was shaping and moving mankind to be what it needed it to be at the time. And it showed like both the before the crystal was there and how, especially this tribe specifically, was pretty desolate. Like, they were dying off at a very high rate. I don't want to say, I guess the chief, the leader of the tribe was kind of, you kind of feel his sadness of, I don't know what to do. We don't know what's going to go on. They're fighting for resources with other tribes, and it was pretty bleak looking for them until this crystal slabs showed up, and then they were starting to be able to use tools. They were starting to be able to use traps, and it kind of went through that way, which was very fascinating. It was very fascinating. And once we left that part of the book of, okay, this is how early man was shaped, and then we zoom all the way to the future where we have a lunar colony. And there's a lunar colony. Somebody was called from Earth to go to the lunar colony because there's something going on that this person needs to see. and it's super hush-hush. There's rumors of an infection, like an illness that's going around the moon, and that's why the government kind of shut everything down to make sure that, nobody talks about this, so it's not getting out. People don't start panicking. But he goes there. We're just traveling with him to the moon, and he's just kind of like how this is very mundane. This is very much like going across country for business conferences. So he gets to the moon, he gets into this area, everybody's kind of freaking out because there's a media blackout, and the people in charge tell him that something was found in one of the craters on the moon. And he's just like, okay, what is it? And they're like, we don't know what it is. So he goes to where they found this artifact, and it was being excavated, and that was the cause of the media blackout, everything. Nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's kind of freaked out, excited, and the people that are closest to the project are like, okay, I understand why we're not allowed to talk to anybody, why we're not allowed to say anything. And he gets there. Once he gets there, he sees this giant crystal-like rectangle slab, and he's super excited about it. Like, there's no way. They try and run as many tests on it as they can. There's no way that it's like natural forming, and everybody is super excited. Everybody's taking pictures because this is proof of life in the universe. Besides humans on Earth, this is proof that there's something else out there. And it starts, I don't know, humming is the right word. It releases a frequency of sound once it is touched by the sun. And everybody realizes it. They start tracking it. Later on, there's an expedition to Jupiter. They have a ship called the Discovery. They're going on the ship. There's 2 crew members, an AI that's running the ship, and three other doctors that are in a hibernation state until they get there. What they found out was this crystal slab on the moon was sending signals to Jupiter, like that far out. So they're following the signal from this crystal slab, and they're on the ship. They've been in isolation for I don't want to say so long. It's been definitely months. And they're traveling past Saturn. They're getting towards their destination. And there's 2 crew members, David and Frank, along with the AI. They're the ones that are awake. They take shifts of being captain of the ship. Well, one of them's on shift. They're like, all right, that person's the captain. And then when they're off shift, the other person's like, all right, I'm captain. And that's just kind of how they go through their day. They're interacting with the AI. They're doing the regular checks of the ship that they're on, of the vitals of the people that are in hibernation, and just kind of occupy their time until they get to Jupiter. And while they're doing this, they're receiving transmissions from Earth. They receive news feeds about people getting hyped, getting excited about them going to Jupiter. They are playing chess with the AI. They are consuming media, and they're just kind of vibing out and just waiting till they get to Jupiter. Until one day, Hal, the AI on board, lets them know that one of the antennae, or I think it's an antennae, on one of the communication satellites on the outside of the ship is malfunctioning. They're like, okay, this is not a big deal. We do have spares. How long will this antennae be functional until it's not functional anymore? Hal gives them an estimate. They radio back to Earth like they're supposed to, let him know that this would cause interference with communications between them and Earth, and that they would like to fix it. They're given the go-ahead, and Frank is the more mechanical person of the team, and David is the commander. He's the leader part of it, but they just kind of split up duties while it's just the two of them. So Frank goes outside of the ship into a little pod, and he gets to the satellite, replaces the parts he needs to, comes back in. They're like, all right, cool, it's working, yay. And a while later, the same part of the antennae is malfunctioning, and Hal lets them know that this antennae on this satellite is malfunctioning. And they're like, well, that's really odd. Same part on the same satellite when we have a limited number of replacements is very odd. They try running diagnostics on why this is happening. They also inform Earth. Earth is like, it's okay, we have enough modules, just replace it. They're like, okay. Well, Frank goes back out to try and fix the antennae. David's kind of running some background diagnostics of seeing why this is happening, because this is very odd. It's been a very uneventful trip until now. And so he's trying to figure that out while monitoring Frank. And at this point, the ship kind of malfunctions, and it caught them off guard. Frank is hit by another part of the ship that's moving. And while that's happening, David is also being very suspicious of Hal. Because like a day or two before, Hal was talking to David about mental health, about how his mental health is going, about his stress levels, kind of doing a psych evaluation on him. And he was just like, I'm fine. Everything is fine. We are going about our jobs, our business. Hal keeps going, isn't it weird that there was so much secrecy surrounding this, kind of trying to goad David into giving him some more information or kind of pry some feelings out of him. But David's like, everything is fine. Everything is fine. But now looking back on it, David's like, that was odd. Hal was programmed to have emotions or be able to communicate and empathize a little with emotions. Because he's AI, he's able to use what they give him to form his version of emotions. But there's no reason for this to happen. And then Frank is outside. He gets hit by a part of the ship. And then he ends up getting untethered from his pod and knocked out and is just floating off into space. There is no way for anybody to save him. So Frank's gone. Hi. Yeah. Hi, Percy. So Frank is gone, and David is just kind of trying to cope the best he can with the situation that he is in. In the following days, he's trying to continue to do the checks that he needs to do. The antennae is still broken, so he's like, I need to fix it. To be able to communicate with Earth, I need to let them know that Frank is gone. And while he's suiting up, trying to get to the antenna, he's like, I don't know this as best as Frank does, but I need to try my best. While he's trying to fix it, all the alarms start going off, and while he's trying to fix it, all the alarms are going off, and the other crew members that are in hibernation until they get to Jupiter, their vitals are failing. They're dying. And there is nothing that David can do about it because it is all controlled by Hal. Hal also tries to get the pod from the spaceship to knock into David to hurt him. I guess to do the same thing that happened to Frank. David is able to get inside and realizes that the crew members are dead and that Hal killed them. And he's like, okay. He also killed Frank. He's kind of going rogue. He's freaking out, but trying to figure out how to disable Hal. He figures out he's going to go to Hal's CPU room and start disconnecting modules and kind of just break him. So he's trying to do that. And while he's working on that, the oxygen levels are also going down. Hal is like, I don't want to kill you, but I will. So while he is working on those cores and trying to get Hal to stop being crazy, he sees that there are some secret file, like there's a secret broadcast that was recorded, and it's informing David of the black crystal slab that was found on the moon over a year before, which was the cause of them getting on this spaceship. And it's all kind of clicking into place for him of like, oh, this is what's going on. And he knows he's not going to survive this trip. There's nobody that's going to come and save him. There's nobody that's going to be able to help him in the interim. Like, he's all by himself in space by Jupiter. They finally get towards their destination, and he decides he's going to get into one of the pods, and he's just going to go. He's just going to go. He finds some information that there is the energy going to one of the moons around Jupiter. I don't remember the exact one, but one of the moons around Jupiter, that's exactly where the signal was going. So as those moons are rotating around Jupiter, he's in this escape pod, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go. I'm going to complete this mission to the best of my ability. I'm going to get the fuck away from Hal and whatever's going on over there. And I'm going to try and survive as best as I can, recording as much as I can, so when the footage and information is found, there'll be something. So he gets into one of the pods that are on the ship that they kind of use for outside maintenance, kind of like just around the ship. It's not meant to be used for an extended period of time, but he's like, I'm going to use this. And once the moon is closest to the Discovery, he leaves the Discovery in the pod, gets to that area, and then when he gets closer, he's able to see the crystal slab on this moon of Jupiter, and it is ginormous. It's bigger than any skyscrapers on Earth, and he is mesmerized by this, and he's like, there it is. And as he's getting closer to it, it doesn't seem like a solid object anymore. And what he ends up doing is he actually ends up going through the crystal slab, and it transfers him into this, I don't want to say psychedelic, but in this like psychedelic type of Stargate, to where there's colors, there's sounds, he's just traveling through this at an enormous speed, and he can't do anything. He's super helpless here, so he's just kind of there. And as it's traveling him through, it stops at certain places. Like one of them looks like a truck stop, a rest area, but it's in space. He sees different ships. He sees these giant buildings kind of floating around, and he sees ships docking in and ships docking out, and he's like, that's odd. Okay. And then it zooms through, and then he'll stop at a city on an asteroid, and he's like, okay, that's also weird, but all right. And there's nothing he can do but try and remember and document as much as he can. So that's what he's trying to do. And as it's going through this, it finally, he doesn't know what time it is, how long he's been on there. Time seems pretty fluid in there. Seems like he's been only in this type of Stargate for 5 minutes as well as 5 years. So as he's going through this, he's like, okay, he's still trying to just do what he's doing. He's running severely low on oxygen in this pod, and they stop. They stop around this planet and start to just, it's like something's controlling the pod. He's not landing it, but it lands him in this pod, and it seems very like a very desolate planet. It's a very, like, there's volcanoes everywhere. It's not like a watered earth or anything. And he lands on here, and he's just kind of like, okay, I'm here now. And when he doesn't want to get out of the pod because he's pretty scared, but he does. And as he's walking, he sees a door, and he opens the door and he goes in, and it's a hotel room. It's a hotel room that he's very familiar with. He compares it to like government hotel rooms that, you know, anybody who's traveling, who's a part of the government, they're like, this is kind of the standard hotel room that you get put in at. And he goes through, he's like, all right, this is the hotel room. He's walking around still in his full spacesuit, walking around, opening up closets. He sees some clothes in there. He's walking around, he sees everything looks just like a hotel room. There's a phone, there's like brochures around, there's a bedroom, and he opens up, there's a little kitchenette area, and he opens up a refrigerator and cabinets, and inside the refrigerator and cabinets there are cereal boxes. It's all this one brand of cereal boxes in the refrigerator, in the cabinets, and he doesn't really know what to think of it, and he opens up one of the cereal boxes and looks in it, and there's this blue stuff in it. Like, there's just, it's all full of this blue stuff. Yeah, it is. And so he doesn't really know what to do. He's in this hotel room, he's just kind of around. So he changes his clothes, he eats some of the cereal, he doesn't know how long he's there. And eventually he just kind of lays down on the bed. And as he lays down, he starts falling into this super deep sleep. Super deep sleep. And while he's in this deep sleep, he falls into this dreamlike state to where he's reliving his life in reverse. And what's happening is the hotel room is falling away because it was all an illusion from a different being. And so as David falls asleep in this bed, the being around him is kind of like, I don't need to spend the energy to create this facade. So everything just kind of falls away. It focuses on him on the bed, and he's living his life in reverse, and he's giving up all of these memories, except he's not losing them, but they're kind of flowing out of him. And he's just going backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards until he's a child, and then to when he's a baby. And it's hard to understand when you're reading the book. It's very, like, Arthur C. Clarke uses a lot of very good descriptive language to describe the feeling as well as what it may look like. But he kind of, once it starts getting weird, he kind of starts steering away from what it looks like to the feeling of it and how you would think of these things happening at this point in time. So we get, the memories are flowing out of him, but he's not losing them, but they're flowing into a wider consciousness. And as this is happening, he is also morphing into what he was like as a baby. And as a baby, he still stays in this state. And then once he loses or gives up his memories into this wider consciousness and is free from all of these memories, then he has an understanding that he is now more than what he was. That these crystal slabs were set up in these particular ways for as waypoints for people who were able to get the technology and the intelligence to follow them to their destination, whereas where he's at, that was the end goal. Those that were able to go to that get the opportunity to become a part of this wider consciousness. And so he's a child, he's this baby just kind of floating there. As he became a baby and he gave up his memories and his consciousness to this wider thing, everything falls away. Everything falls away. So he's in this darkness, understanding the memories, as well as pulling, not memories, but not thoughts, like just understanding from this other consciousness, this other creature that created these stone slabs and created the Hotel of Illusion. And he's in there and he understands that he is the baby in his physical form because his mind still needs a physical form right now. But as he becomes more a part of this consciousness, he will no longer need a physical form and can just be. Doesn't get rid of the baby form that he has, but he knows that he can. And realizes that his new goals are to go to other parts of the universe to start the process all over again. Like, he was a part of this larger consciousness, and now he gets to go and help form other civilizations to have their ultimate goal also come into this consciousness with their intelligence and their technology. And during this time, he's starting feeling like nostalgic, like he wants to go back to his planet, even though as he's like, I want to go back to Earth, I understand that's not my planet anymore. But as still in this infant-like form, he still has this infant childlike wonder, and he's like, I want to go home. But he knows that this other consciousness is telling him, like, you don't have a home. We need to start this process in other places. And that's kind of how the book ends. And what I've learned that I really enjoy with Arthur C. Clarke is the ending is never like an ending. And usually with other books, I hate when it's left on something so ambiguous that I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, just tell me what happens. Tell me how the book ends. With Arthur C. Clarke, for some reason, that's the only time that I'm like, you know what? I like it. But yeah, I like that with Arthur C. Clarke, and I'm really looking forward to reading more of his stuff. I rated this book a 5 out of 5. I got super engrossed in different parts of the story. When I look at it's not a really long book. It's in this tiny little form of a book. It is 297 pages. So yeah, it's not a large book. I wish I had a banana for size, but it's not a long book, but it's a very thought-provoking book. I really enjoyed, like I said, the first part was, I think, my favorite part. Like, overall, that whole storytelling of the first part, and then everything after that led up to the end, which was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. I thought that it would be a little bit longer, a little bit more descriptive, but it works within the context of the story. But after I read that book, I watched the movie, and in my head, the book provided its own little soundtrack for me, and I was too busy imagining all of these fantastical type things and getting caught up in my mind movie of the story that the pauses and the silences in the movie was super jarring. I mean, it worked very well, and I watched it. What month is it? I think I watched it a couple of months after I read the book. And so it's just being able to go back to the story and then seeing how Stanley Kubrick made a movie out of it alongside Arthur C. Clarke was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys get to read it or read more Arthur C. Clarke. If you have, what is your favorite Arthur C. Clarke story? What should I read next from Arthur C. Clarke? We have a lot of his novels now that I think about it, and that's very exciting. But that was 2001 A Space Odyssey, a 5-star read for me, and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read it again. I definitely gonna be one of the ones that I read again, like just routinely, maybe once a year, once every 3 years. I don't know, just every now and then. But thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys have an amazing day, night, afternoon, whatever it is, where you are. If you want to check out to see where I'm at on everything, I have all of my socials, all of that stuff in the description below. Hang out with me on Discord, on Twitter, all of that lovely stuff. And I will hopefully be able to talk to you guys again very soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do all the things. I hope you guys have an amazing time. Bye.